I watched her walk down the jet bridge, hand in hand with him, the man I once trusted more than anything. She had no idea I'd be on this flight, sitting just one row behind her. Karma doesn't come quietly. And today, it's sitting right next to her. Before I tell you what happened next, hit that like button and subscribe. You don't want to miss the justice she never saw coming. I never thought I would feel this level of betrayal. I thought I knew her Safaritha, the woman I trusted more than anyone in the world. We shared dreams, laughter, and quiet moments that I believed were ours alone. I believed in us so completely that I couldn't imagine life without her. I thought love was enough to weather any storm. But love, it turns out, isn't always enough when trust is broken. It started subtly, almost imperceptibly. A text that disappeared when I walked by. A smile she reserved for someone else. Small moments that I tried to dismiss as imagination. I told myself I was paranoid, that I was reading too much into harmless gestures. Deep down, though, I felt a gnawing unease, a warning that something was off. My gut twisted every time her phone buzzed, and every time she stepped away with a nervous glance. I wanted to believe she was faithful, that our bond was unshakable. But the truth has a way of breaking through even the strongest illusions. Then I found it Roland, her affair partner. I remember the instant I saw the messages, the photos, the plans she made without me. My hands shook as I stared at the screen, my chest tight, my mind screaming. Rage, humiliation, sorrow, all collided inside me. Each emotion sharper than the last. How could she betray me like this? Years of love, promises, shared memories, replaced by a fleeting thrill with someone else. I felt small, betrayed in a way that words can barely capture. And yet, amidst the pain, a spark of clarity ignited. I didn't want mindless revenge. I wanted justice. Raw, undeniable, perfect justice. I wanted her to see the weight of her choices, to feel a taste of the chaos she caused. I wanted karma to sit right next to her, patient and unrelenting. That's when I saw the opportunity, a flight she booked with Roland, thinking it would be private, a secret escape from everything. She had no idea I'd be on that same plane. One row behind, calm, collected, letting anticipation and rage settle into a quiet determination. Every moment leading up to boarding was a mix of fear, adrenaline, and satisfaction. I rehearsed the revelation, imagined her shock, the way her eyes would widen, the subtle tremor of panic she would try to hide. I realized in that moment that the best revenge isn't loud. It's precise. It's invisible until the perfect second. And as I watched her from afar, laughing and unaware, I knew that karma had a seat on this plane and I was holding it. I stepped onto the plane with my heart pounding, every step heavy with anticipation. The hum of the engines felt louder than usual, or maybe it was just the echo of my own thoughts. I tried to calm myself, telling myself I wasn't here to lash out. Not yet. I was here for something far more satisfying: justice. Safira had no idea I'd be here. She thought this trip was their secret, a private escape where I would never interfere. But fate has a funny way of arranging seats, and today it arranged mine right behind her. The moment I saw her laughing with Roland, my chest tightened. The sight of her carefree, smiling face, oblivious to the storm about to hit, made my blood boil and my mind sharpen. I could feel every little detail: the way she leaned into him, the casual touch of her hand brushing his. Everything I once loved, now twisted into betrayal, paraded in front of me. I clenched my fists, letting the rage simmer beneath a calm exterior. I wasn't going to explode, not yet. Not until the moment was perfect. As I walked down the aisle, I kept my eyes on them, calculating, observing. I noticed the subtle things: Roland's smug expression, thinking he had the upper hand. The arrogance in Safira's laughter, assuming I had no idea. Every second, stretched out, slow and deliberate. I could feel karma waiting, patient, like a predator circling unseen. I reminded myself to breathe, to stay composed. Every heartbeat was a countdown. I found my seat one row behind them and sat down quietly. My hands rested on my knees, but inside, I was electric, alive with tension. I imagined her noticing me, the shock, the panic creeping into her perfect little world. I could almost see it, the sudden break in her laughter. The color draining from her face, Roland's smugness faltering into confusion. I didn't need to speak. The presence itself was enough. I watched them through the corner of my eyes, pretending to read, pretending to be absorbed in my own world, while my mind replayed every memory of lies and broken promises. Every smile she shared with him, every touch, every whispered lie, cataloged it all, storing it for the moment justice would arrive. I imagined the subtle ways I could expose them, ways that would leave them powerless and embarrassed, while I remained untouchable, calm, and composed. The plane took off, and with every mile, the tension grew. My chest tightened with anticipation, a mix of anger and satisfaction. She thought she had escaped me, but Karma was already in the seat beside her, disguised in the calm shadow of a man she once betrayed. And when the right moment came, she would realize betrayal never goes unanswered. I couldn't take my eyes off them. Every laugh, every glance, every little gesture between Saphira and Roland felt like a knife twisting deeper into me. The betrayal wasn't just in the act, it was in the way she carried herself, as if I didn't exist, as if every promise we ever made was just a lie she wore like a mask. My chest ached, not from anger alone, but from the suffocating weight of disbelief. How could someone I loved so completely throw it all away so casually? Memories of us flashed in my mind like a cruel slideshow. The quiet nights we spent talking about our future, the mornings filled with laughter over coffee, the way she used to hold my hand and make me feel invincible, gone, replaced by this charade with Roland, by whispered secrets and stolen moments I never imagined. The contrast hit me harder than anything. I had loved her with everything I had, and she had discarded me like I was nothing. I felt a surge of rage, but it wasn't blind. It was sharp, focused, and controlled. My entire body buzzed with anticipation and fury at once. I could almost taste the justice I was about to deliver. It wasn't enough to just know. She had to feel it. She had to experience the weight of her choices in a way she couldn't ignore. I remembered the first time I saw the messages. The screen lit up with words I never thought I'd read. Plans for secret trips. Declarations of affection that weren't meant for me. Photos that froze my blood. I had dropped the phone and sat there, trembling. Rage, humiliation, sorrow, they all collided, and yet beneath it all, a strange calm settled. I realized that I didn't want to destroy her in a blind fit of anger. I wanted her downfall to be precise, undeniable, and poetic. That realization gave me a clarity I had never felt before. Now, sitting just one row behind her, I felt the power of the moment settle like a slow, heavy wave. I didn't need to shout. I didn't need to confront her physically. The mere fact that I was here, that I knew everything, that Karma had followed her onto this plane, this was enough to start unraveling the smug little world she had built with Roland. Every subtle smirk she shared, every quiet confidence he carried, fed the anticipation. I imagined her noticing me, her eyes widening, the color leaving her face. I could almost see the panic as she realized this wasn't coincidence, that fate had seated me here with a purpose. And in that realization, I knew something powerful. Betrayal may have seemed hidden, but it has a way of catching up. Always. The moment finally arrived. I didn't make a move. Not yet. I stayed calm, letting the weight of my presence do the work. Saphira was laughing at something Roland said, leaning into him like the world had forgotten I existed. And for a moment, I let it sting. But only for a moment, because beneath that sting, a slow, satisfying plan was unfolding in my mind. Karma had its timing, and I wasn't rushing it. I adjusted in my seat, pretending to read, but my eyes never left them. Every subtle touch between them felt like fuel to a fire that had been burning quietly inside me for months. I remembered everything, every lie, every stolen moment, every whispered excuse she gave when I asked if something was wrong, all of it. And now I was here, sitting in the perfect position, the calm eye of a storm that she couldn't see coming. Then it happened, the first flicker of awareness. I saw her glance over her shoulder. Her eyes met mine just for a second, and I could see the confusion, the hesitation. She froze mid-laugh, the color leaving her face like a tide pulling out to sea. Roland noticed too, but he didn't understand, didn't see it yet. His smug expression faltered, a slight tension creeping into his shoulders, and that was all the opening I needed. I leaned slightly, still quiet, and let the words form in my mind. I didn't need to shout. I didn't need a scene. The air itself seemed heavy, carrying the weight of the truth she had tried to hide. She knew she was caught, but not how. That moment of recognition, the slow dawning of panic, was far more satisfying than any confrontation I could stage with anger or noise. Every heartbeat was electric. I imagined the scramble in her mind. How did he know? How was he here? The realization hit her like a cold wave. I could see her lips part, but no words came. I imagined Roland's confusion turning into fear as he began to sense the shift, the quiet inevitability of the moment. And through it all, I stayed calm, letting the tension stretch, letting her world shrink. Knowing that the reckoning had begun, I didn't need revenge in the traditional sense. This was far more potent. The betrayal she thought was invisible was now exposed, undeniable, and there was nothing she could do. The power of her choices, the weight of her lies, was finally sitting beside her, calm, patient, and unyielding. The plane carried us forward, but for her, every second felt like standing still, trapped in the realization that karma always arrives, whether you see it coming or not. The tension had reached its peak. I could feel it in every inch of the plane cabin, in every shallow breath Saphira took, in the nervous shift of Roland beside her. They thought this trip was theirs alone, a secret bubble where nothing could touch them. But they hadn't counted on karma having a seat, and neither had they counted on me. I stayed calm, letting the subtle power of my presence settle like a shadow over them. I didn't need to yell or create a scene. That's the beauty of true revenge. It doesn't need noise. It needs precision. I let the memories of their betrayal simmer in my mind, sharpening my focus. Every laugh they shared, every smug glance, was a thread I could pull to unravel their carefully constructed little world. I started with a simple move, nothing dramatic, just enough to unsettle them. A quiet message sent discreetly, a subtle nudge that the right people were aware of what they'd done. I watched as their carefree demeanor began to falter. The first flicker of doubt appeared in Saphira's eyes, a hesitation that made her laugh falter. Roland stiffened, sensing that something was wrong, but unable to grasp it fully, and that's when I smiled inwardly. It wasn't public shaming. It was artful, quiet, undeniable. Let their anxiety build, measured, precise, savoring the way the guilt and fear crept in. Every second that passed, Saphira realized this wasn't a coincidence. My presence was proof, but the unraveling of her smugness, the cracking of her confident facade, was the real spectacle. She couldn't ignore it, couldn't hide, couldn't manipulate the narrative anymore. And then it hit the full weight of realization. Her laughter stopped completely. She looked around, trying to find a lifeline, a way to save herself, but there was none. Roland's bravado crumbled. The smugness vanished, replaced by awkward, desperate silence. They were trapped, not by me directly, but by the inevitable consequence of their choices. The betrayal that had seemed invisible, untouchable, now sat squarely between them, patient and merciless. I leaned back in my seat, calm, composed, watching. The storm I had orchestrated without a single raised voice. Satisfaction coursed through me, not from cruelty, but from justice. The betrayal that had haunted me, the lies that had wounded me, were now mirrored back to them in a way that couldn't be denied. Karma isn't loud, it isn't flashy. It waits, silent and precise, until the moment is perfect. And today, it had arrived right beside them. I let it linger, savoring the inevitability, the perfection of the moment. Every flicker of fear, every glance filled with panic, every unspoken acknowledgement of their guilt, it was all mine to witness. And I knew as the plane continued toward its destination that some things in life, like betrayal, have a price. And that price is always paid. The plane began its descent, and with every mile closer to the ground, the tension in the cabin slowly shifted. Saphira and Roland sat frozen, their earlier arrogance replaced with a quiet, heavy realization. I stayed calm, letting the silence speak for itself. Words weren't necessary anymore. The subtle chaos of their exposed betrayal had already done its work. Karma doesn't need a grand announcement, tit settles quietly, leaving a mark that echoes far longer than anger or confrontation ever could. I leaned back, feeling the weight of the past months lift from my shoulders. Betrayal had cut deep, but witnessing the consequences unfold before me offered a strange, satisfying closure. The fire that had burned in Mitha, mix of pain, rage, and determination, was finally cooling into calm clarity. I realized something vital in that moment. True power doesn't come from revenge. It comes from patience, from letting justice take its course naturally. Saphira avoided my gaze, a mixture of shame and disbelief painted across her features. Roland tried to maintain some semblance of composure, but it faltered with every glance in my direction. They had been so confident in their deception, so certain that their actions would remain hidden. But reality had a way of catching up to those who underestimated, and today they were meeting it face to face. I allowed myself a quiet, almost imperceptible smile. Not one of cruelty, but of satisfaction, of balance restored. Betrayal is heavy. It lingers in the memory like a shadow. But when karma intervenes, even silently, it lightens that weight. I had suffered, yes, but I had survived, and now I was leaving the pain and deceit behind. The past wouldn't define me any longer. I would move forward with clarity, dignity, and a calm that only comes from knowing justice has been served. As the plane touched down, I stood, gathering my things. Saphira and Roland remained seated, trapped in the aftermath of choices they could no longer deny. I walked down the aisle, each step deliberate, each breath steady. The cabin felt lighter with every stride. The world outside awaited me, a world free of their lies, free of their betrayal. And I knew that some lessons, though painful, leave the strongest marks on those who refuse to learn. Betrayal is a bitter teacher, but karma is patient, precise, and relentless. Today, it had sat beside them, quiet yet undeniable. And as I exited the plane, stepping into the sunlight, I felt a sense of peace that comes from knowing the story had its ending exactly as it should.